hello. Welcome back to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And I want to continue the discussion on relationships and my thoughts on them. And just because it was such a really a big subject, um, in the last video, I went off a little bit on my astrology and how my signs is part of my value system. And so I feel like, there's a lot of getting to know an Aquarius or an Aries or a Pisces or whatever the sign is. They look for compatibility. And I feel like a lot of that can be avoided. All that superficial layer of trying to understand them by actually just talking to your person. So I am always interested in the Scorpion energy. And equally as interested as I can also then get repulsed. It depends upon how they're playing that energy. And just like with all the signs, there's not really a good one or a bad one. It just depends. And so, like, I feel like the power of astrology happens when you start, besides just likes and dislikes on a surface level, go a little deeper. What are these core values? Is it security? Is it material? Is it looks? And for some people, it really is looks. And that equates value. So, looking your best, smelling your best, um, I would say earth signs really like that. And you might have to evolve into that understanding. So, if I was like going to do a master class on relationships with the zodiac signs, I I could really sum it up is once you do a little basic astrology research and get kind of a little bit of understanding with the signs, noting their values, then you know what to look for, and kind of each sign has a test. So Aries test is basically, can you go out and have fun? Like, it's not the same type of fun. So I'd say fire sign tests. We'll just break it up into elements. Fire signs, they need adventure, fun, stimulation. So they have a tendency to go towards air signs, because air signs give them ideas and are open to adventures and are willing to do this and that and change things up. And air signs are doing it in a creative, like, interest. Did you know this? Did you know that? Have you ever been here? Let's try that. The call for adventure, like air signs, do it in a way that's not challenging. Instead of, I'm challenging you to run up to this top of the hill, or I bet I can beat you. That's that's how you get conflict with a fire sign. If a fire sign feels like you're challenging them, it's, it's not a and it's not the fun type of challenge, that's gonna not go good. So I believe, just earth signs in general, presentation is important. How does your house look? Is it organized? Is it kept? Do you have manners? How do you keep your body? Um, so it is the physical world, and it's very practical. Um, and it says something about you when you have your house clean and in order. So earth is an organizing, crystallizing energy. So this clarity, like a diamond, could be a very sharp mind. It could be a very clear mind. That could be seen as highly attractive, I think, to an earth sign. Organized in order, you know, so planning and preparation, planning your your relationship to your grave, long-term vision. So speaking things like that. I thought also earth signs are very sensual and they're feminine. So appealing to the senses, appealing to the body is always a bonus, no matter how rigid or anal your earth sign gets. If you look good and if you smell nice, that opens doors. If you're pleasant to be around in bed, that opens doors. And then with earth comes death. Like water signs are death as well. The feminine sign is death. And so, flaws, not being perfect. Bodies smell, bodies rot, bodies die, bodies decay. And so, being balanced with understanding that, can you find it charming? Is there a beauty in the not perfect? So I feel like, so some flaws could actually be making someone more interesting, like a beauty mark, you know? Uh, there is a beauty in the unbeautiful. And I feel like earth signs can appreciate that a lot. Water signs might be able to as well. But I think, like the pleasant charm of, let me here's something. Here's this piece of wood. It's not perfect. And everything not perfect about it gives it real character. So that's on the visual level, but it's through time and experience. So I think earth signs might really appreciate someone who has a great character that happens through going through the battles of life and developing patience, developing endurance, developing a skill to master level. These are all admirable things. They're kind of like trophies, but we wear them on our skin. We wear them in the shapes of our bodies on how we used it effectively and efficiently. So I feel like this is also the type of beauty that earth signs are looking for, and I would call that maturity. So patience is a character uh, character trait is the word I was looking for. So I feel like earth signs look for great character trait and long term, practical, organized. That's just my general feel with earth signs. And so knowing this, you look at the values and are you really a good match for that? Like, so this is like the honesty step in the video. When we really get real with ourselves, when you're like, I don't have patience, or I don't really care how great someone's character is, or I don't really lust and value their achievements and what they've been able to do with their limits, if that doesn't turn you on, then an air sign or an earth sign is probably not someone you need to be with. If good looks, charisma, and excitement, you might want to go for a fire sign. Uh, if you like indulgence, if you like relaxation, if you like comfort, if you like to socialize and mingle, and you're curious, a water sign. You know, if you want to have deep discussions, if you always want to have your mind stimulated, an air sign. And so, I feel like air signs know things come and go, and they know like security and safety can feel like a trap, like there's no growth, and so they're always looking for change. And in order to feel fresh, in order to feel like life, like air needs to keep moving, water needs to keep moving. So those two signs are very unsettled. More than fire signs is actually water and air. So this goes into the values. It goes into our temperament. So that was something I didn't really explain. But in astrology, there's usually a little graph at the bottom or to the side, and it's an elemental breakdown. And it goes into what's usually called the mode or the temperament. And also, they try to do that with candidate, succeedant, and whatever it is. The naming of the houses in three different modes. And those are like the temperaments of the elements. So if fire was a person and a being, like a being made of like fire, we know that they consume. Fire must consume in order to create heat, in order to create light, and they consume anything and everything in their path, and they can burn themselves out. Fires get put out with water. So fire and water usually don't mix, but they can balance each other. It's how you handle it. And fire can consume air. So even though it needs air, it can also drain air signs. They can just consume and burn out like suffocate, like burn out, extinguish all the fire, all the air. And so, and earth signs can be slow and heavy and smothering and kind of heavy. And that can not be good for fire signs and can get muddy and sticky for water signs. And earth signs might not penetrate that very well, like fire, like it's like wind hitting a mountain. And so there can be roadblocks, and people can feel roadblocked with earth. But earth also, brings stability, support, shelter, protection, wealth. And so understanding the modes of the elements is really important. That's really not brought up in tarot readings. It's not really brought up in astrology readings. We just always are so fixated on the signs and the planets. We really skip over the basic meat of it all. It's all broken down into the four elements, and the tarot is broken down into the four elements as well. And so you may be all sorts of stars and planets and signs, but with that little key at the bottom, that little elemental breakdown, you might have a lot of fire going on, even though you're a water sign. You might have a lot of earth going on, even though you're an air sign. And so that goes into those values and getting to know your partner and playing on those strings. Like you might not have the energy to play on those strings or give them what they need, give them what they want and desire. So the next thing is there's no creation without conflict. There's no evolution. If everything is all peaceful and calm and we don't have conflict, then there's no growth. There's no life. And so a sign of healthy relationships is having fights, having conflicts, having disagreements. And besides having them is how do you make up? How do you come back together? Do you really come back to good? So water signs have difficulty with this because water and memory go together. And so that means holding a grudge for a long time. Earth signs can hold grudges forever. They're even slower moving. They're the most dense of the element. So you can consider it permanent. So relationships can be ruined when we go into resentment, when we go into maybe feeling defensive and having to put our shield or our guard up. If the earth sign feels like they need to guard themselves, you're out forever. Like honestly, you know. Then so there will be times when you might play the enemy in your relationship during the season, during the power struggles. And can you become friends with your enemy? Can they then become your lover? And not like some weird fantasy seduction like 007, but like for reals. Can you come back to good? So I would say, once again, patience. Once again, really understanding if you're, so yeah, you're friends. That's superficial. Are you compatible friends? So yeah, you're sexually attracted to each other. That's superficial to an extent. Are you going to be able to carry that into the other levels? So fire represents spirit, and it's the source, the spark of life, and it's also like the initiating inspirational thought. So it could even be like lightning. Um, and then like air is like the mind. So then it's like producing all these thoughts and plans and communicating. And so if you have a block, if you're incompatible in air, you can't communicate like water signs because they're emotional feelers. They emote and they navigate through feelings. Uh, that communication style might not work for someone who doesn't communicate that way, who's passionately inspired, heartfelt, fire, explosive. There could be a misunderstanding. And so water will always be trying to calm down and not understand where the passion and inspiration is coming from the fire signs. They'll go, "You're living in your ego," like my sister told me the other day. And I'm like, "No, I'm connected to spirit, and what you're doing is so egotistical. I have to burn you up and destroy you." So we can be coming, so we're coming from our own place of understanding. And when we try to analyze someone else, like she thought she was doing, I have my moon in Pisces, so I have water as well. So I could see where she was coming from, but she wasn't honoring the facts. A couple facts. She wasn't honoring my Aquarius rising. She wasn't honoring a few things. And so we misperceive, we're programmed differently, we come back from different environments. So the conflict is during the relationship process, there's this stripping down of, let's like unloading your baggage, sorting it out, throwing it away. And usually after you're done with that, you find harmony. You're in the harmony stage of your relationship. Most people get out of it before that, or most people just get stuck in the power stage of sorting things out. So all emotions should cycle. You are happy, don't force staying happy all day. Don't try to live 24 hours in bliss. That's going to hit you hard. Um, you don't need to be spiritual 24 hours a day. So you don't need to stay in the same career your whole life. You don't need to stay the same personality in your relationship the whole life. There should be evolutionary growth happening, new ideas, new energies, new feelings coming in, old things going. Every like you're transforming, you're shedding. 24 hours in your relationship. It doesn't need to be an extreme, it doesn't need to be the focus of your life in your relationship. Uh, but we need to acknowledge there's this alchemy of evolution going on. So you could get to certain stages in your process where you're not compatible and you must separate. And instead of it being a sad thing, because in the West we view separation as loss, separation as failure, we criticize ourselves when we can't stay with someone. When really it's congratulations, you made it to this level, separate, have your alone time, go through your transformation. If we're maybe even more compatible after, if you've had that time to self-reflect and process and really integrate what it is you need to, then we can come back and be stronger than ever. So I think a lot of people think separation is the end, or because they needed to be in another relationship because they couldn't go with you to these other levels you were going. You might find that your mission in life is different. You know, someone might have a direction towards God. Other people have direction towards God in the physical, being a mother and a father. And I would even say God in business. We really separate this idea of spirituality being this like transcendent thing in spiritual communities and like religious things. But really, God can be becoming an athlete, uh, finding your personal potential, doing the greatest creative work of art. So the reality is spirituality slash this drive to be one with God or whatever should be present in your elevated relationships. So, yeah, get to really know. Because, like, I feel like if someone is, like, spiritual or, like, religious on some level, even if they say they're not, when you look at their actions and behaviors, you find out that they are. That's kind of a different type of relationship. You may be like, that's great and all, but that's not my evolutionary path, or I don't see it like that. So, a huge conflict in relationship is just the main direction people are going are in different directions. So, we discussed, obviously, you're attracted to each other, that's the chemistry, values, beliefs. Now, this religious element, this spiritual element, the meaning of life. What is it that gets you up in the day? What is your life purpose? What's your mission? Why are you here on the planet? If you don't know why, and you don't know why your partner is here on the planet, if you don't know what your partner's mission is, you don't know them well enough to be their partner. It's like, honestly, you don't know them well enough. It's like people kind of tell you who they are in various ways pretty soon. So the other part is during the dating process and the getting to know you is usually an introduction or discussion about family. You learn their family background. You decide if you fit into it. And chances are, on some level, you guys are compatible because you remind them of their father, their mother, their brother, their sister, their type of people. What they're used to during these fundamental family patterns. And on the immature side, people are trying to close the loop, they're trying to connect and heal those unmet needs. So if you had an absent father, you might really crave father's attention, or an absent mother. Um, if you haven't worked through that, the relationship's going to suffer. But if you are working through it together and it's out on the table, then the relationship could actually use that as fuel and grow. And then if you really pay attention to the conflicts and then can like see the architecture of what's going on, it can be like, okay, you know, my partner's feeling abandoned. They were abandoned by their father figure. I'm cold. They were cold. And so this blow up really has nothing to do with me. It's an expression of repressed stuff. And this is an opportunity for them to have it come up and them to see it. So as a partner, I will serve them as a mirror. As a partner, I will hold space. I'll play a character for a moment, but then this got to go and let's get back to being partners. So I think a lot of people get stuck in therapy, in life, in all their relationships and all their conversations. I would say that's a red flag for me. So there has to be a balance. Like you have, like the partnership is something different than family. The partnership is something different than friends. The partnership is something different than coworkers and associates. It is its own entity. So if you can't preserve just the partnership, you know, you might have children right now and job responsibilities, and you neglect the just the partnership, then the relationship is destined to fail. If uh, you bring too much stuff into the partnership, it's gonna fail. You're bringing elements that don't belong there. It's like going to the vet asking for medical information for your mother, or going to the vet asking for a psychic reading. It's not the right place, it's not the right time, it's not the right environment, and they don't have that skill set. So your partner can't is not really there for that. So there's limits, there's boundaries with this. So a lot of people think my partner should be my best friend, my confidant, my buddy, and like the same religion as me and accept all my flaws, and the answer is no. If they're just your partner, you're putting way too much on one person. So let's see. So, yes, relationships are hard when you put all this other stuff on them unconsciously. Relationships aren't hard when you don't pay attention early on of really understanding them as a person, them as a friend. You need to know, like, do they really want kids? Are they even oriented that way? They might say yeah, but is the evidence there? Like, do they have, I would think if someone really wanted kids and they wanted to be a dad or a mom, they'd be like, well, yeah, I've been saving all this money and I've already have all this stuff picked out. They might have pre-planned and pre-saved for it. I would be like, there's evidence showing me that these lofty ideas are going to be something real for you. And then at that point, I'd be like, that's not really my vision. I really hope you find that man or woman uh, there. You guys can live that dream together. So people have to have that shared dream. Some people have a shared dream of being there for each other. Like that's a high value. And so we see the vision of their future. Like, why are we getting up and going to work? What is this all about? For a lot of people, they just want to have a baby. And they say, so it's very general. I want to have a baby. I want to be a mom. I want to love. I'm like, that's very surface. Let's get deeper into it. Do you even have the ability? Like, my niece wants to have a baby, but she neglects the dog. So evidence shows you're going to neglect your child. She also hasn't saved any money for it. And right now she's in therapy, great. But that also tells me that she's not ready to understand everything that comes with being responsible for another life and imprinting in psychology. So it'd be different if she was like, yeah, I went to school, I took some classes on parenting, I read up on it, I've been saving for it. I I would be like, wow, I'm impressed. You taking real steps. You're learning and growing. Uh, you're and so you're becoming very wise, very knowledgeable. You have every right to pursue this vision. We want things, but doesn't mean that we deserve them. So, this accountability, some people call it coming to Jesus. I don't really like that. Um, but a really good friend of mine said some people don't have the ability to self reflect. And I believe with that self reflection becomes accountability. So, like after a fight, you go back, you look at yourself, and you go, why was I triggered? What's going on? What was my real intention? And so, and then you change. So, it's really a lot of self accountability, holding yourself accountable, being responsible for what you say, think, and feel, being responsible in paying attention to looking for the right things in a relationship. So it kind of actually becomes exciting, but that's also a lot of work. So, are you ready to put forth that much work to have a relationship? Or maybe a pet would be better for you. Like, and if you're not good at debating and you're shying away from conflict, I don't think you're going to be able to have a real relationship. I've been really looking lately at the relationships around me, and there's a lot of dishonesty under the blanket of I don't want to hurt this other person's feelings, or it's going to hurt worse if I just go directly towards what needs to be said and what needs to be done. If I really divorce them now, it's going to hurt my kids or whatever. And so it's all this self sacrifice for no reason. The reality is, the more you're dishonest, the more you drag it on, the worse and muddier and toxic it gets. So it depends upon how you play the game of life. Like, I look at situations as opportunities to grow and to evolve, to become more self aware. So it's easy for me to go back to forgiveness. It's easy for me to move on. And if conversations aren't evolving, I'm dropping people out of my life. If, if they're staying on a superficial level and they're not processing it, there's no reason why I should be there. I value my time. So these are my thoughts on relationships, and you can apply them to family, friends, coworkers, businesses, and then you can just get really clear with who you are. And people will respect you more for it. They'll go, I really understand what's going on with this person. I don't have to figure it out. And then they can avoid you. Or they'll really understand. And you'll be able to interact. You'll have chemistry with the world in a more positive way. You won't be so surprised. You won't be so defensive. You won't be so victimized. It's like the way you carry yourself says a lot. The tone of your voice says a lot. And then people will know. They'll be like, I don't want to talk to Onyx. He's going to ask me about my values. He's going to look for the results. He's going to always bring the bottom line up and hold me accountable. If I don't like that type of love, whoa, accountability is love, then I'll go somewhere else. And I'm like, great, don't waste my time. So that's really it. It's like weak people have weak experiences, and I think it just goes into toxicity. And then learning to become strong through being clear, through knowing what you want, just gets you what you want and helps you not settle for less. Like, look at the end result. Bottom line, you're being ignored. That's not love. Bottom line, you're holding on to someone who's in the past. That's not helping you get over it. If they really, if they were really on board, they would be on board. That's it, really. There's no mystery reading. There's no waiting. It's like they're either with you or they're not. It's either a hell yes or a hell no. And then all that time in between, you can develop a friendship. It could grow into something, but don't put them in the boyfriend or girlfriend box. They're just a friend until they show up for themselves and for you. So really all you have to do is just keep showing up for yourself, becoming the best version of yourself, taking a good look at who you are, and holding yourself accountable and responsible in thought, word, and deed, which is the manifestation formula and the karma formula. And it's going to go good. And the people you don't need in your life will just go. You won't even have to do anything.